Thank you, June. I appreciate that very much. I've looked forward to today. I hope my throat holds out. I have looked forward to today with great anticipation. It's always a joy to get to come to the lectures here. We were talking among us the other night about wouldn't it be wonderful to have the free time to just take in all the good lectureships across the Brotherhood. I think that would be such a marvelous treat. And I'm sorry that we haven't been able to always be here, but we do look forward to this week. And I just have to take a moment here to say, since this is my forum and I can't speak out there, to tell you ladies to please thank your husbands, especially the elders' wives and those connected with the school, for the honor that they're bestowing upon my husband. I knew I'd do that. As I look out over the audience, it's such a joy to see familiar faces. And there's one I just have to mention. When we were in Middle Tennessee speaking, and I look out over the audience, I always see Evelyn Beard. And when we were in the audience last night, I looked out across and I thought, she looks enough like Evelyn to be a twin sister. And lo and behold, it was Evelyn, and I was so delighted to see her. It's always good to see Charlene and others among you that I have known in times past, and to make new acquaintances. It's really an humbling experience to stand before an audience like this. When I look out and I see Iris, and I see Fran, and all these wonderful teachers from the school, I realize the double responsibility that I have. And so I want you to know how honored I am that I've been invited to be a part of this program. And I apologize for my hoarseness. When I got the assignment and looked and saw the topic, I thought, Maxie, why me? And then I stopped to think, well, Maxie, why not? I probably need this worse than anybody else. The topic of omission and commission, the topic of procrastination, thank you, is one that hits all of us. And there are certainly two besetting sins of mine. It's so easy to let things stack up. Our good intentions just don't get carried out all the time, do they? And so we live too much by the adage of letting things slide. Remember when Mother told you never put off until tomorrow what you could do today? I wish I could live by that, don't you? We have too much the attitude of don't do today what you can let slide till tomorrow. And so therefore we have a problem. We have inverted that wonderful adage that Mother tried to instill. Procrastination is a serious matter, though, ladies, when we stop and think about it. Procrastination is really a killer. Because as long as we put off doing that which we know we should do, the deed never gets accomplished. And so procrastination has killed many, many good works of the church. It's really as deadly as dragging your feet and opposing a good work. And let me just pause here and say something I meant to say in the preliminaries before I lost my voice. I want to commend the lectureship here. Every speaker that I have heard has had a tremendous message. And I want to thank the directors, those involved in the school, those involved with the eldership for planning a program such as this. And I commend the lectureship highly, and I have been honored that we have been allowed to be here. Going back to the topic of procrastination, it kills not only, ladies, the work of the church, it kills the work of the home, the peace and harmony of the home. We mean to do things that will increase the love and the relationship in the home, and we put off doing it. You know, simple little things. And little things do mean a lot. I determined early in our marriage, even before our children came, that I was not going to let a day go by without telling each member of my family, I love you. Now that's a simple little thing. But it's amazing how that has built a good relationship among all of us. And as our little grandchildren came along, they picked up quick on the fact that we never close a telephone conversation. We never part. We never go to bed without saying, Grandmama, I love you. And those words are precious. And if you don't believe it can make a difference, then you try it in your home and you see how much difference it will make. We can show we love, but we need to say the love too. Don't procrastinate that. Build that home relationship. Procrastination kills the effectiveness of a business venture. Those of you who have been in the business world know that you have deadlines to meet. Doing bookkeeping work, I have deadlines. And if I don't meet them, if I put off meeting them, I can cost my clients money. And that's going to kill the business. If I put them off until the 0 hour, then I stress myself out. And so procrastination can really hurt your business. It robs you of the satisfaction of doing things timely, of accomplishing things. And ladies, this is so important in church work. And that's primarily the area that we want to discuss. When your elders plan a good working program, you need to get behind it yesterday. We don't need to sit and wait to see if somebody else is going to take the lead. We don't need to sit and wait until we're asked. And I mean in all kindness that this is a real problem. We have some of the most marvelous working ladies in our congregation at Ripley, Tennessee. But they would never volunteer for anything. You ask them and they'll do anything that you ask them to do. But it takes somebody's time to go around to ask them. And so we need to develop the attitude of when a work is proposed, say, here am I, what can I do? Procrastination is a very, very serious matter. No work is safe from its destructiveness. When a work is proposed, procrastination whispers, wait till later. And how many programs have died on the planning board because nobody picked up the ball and moved it forward? They said, well, we'll think about that. Let's table that. Let's wait till later. And it never gets done. The longer that we put off any given task, the harder it's going to be. And that's a lesson that we humans just never seem to learn, do we? A task is going to take the same amount of time to do timely as it is if you put it off until the 0 hour. And it's a lot less stressful. And I wish I could remember that when I have manuscripts to do. We let things crowd out those important things. And as one of the speakers mentioned, we usually manage to do those things that we consider real important. And so we need to learn to prioritize our time. The effectiveness of our work for the Lord is going to be robbed when we procrastinate and do it under pressure. We need to give it the very best. There's a principle taught in a beautiful song that we used to sing. I don't see it in a lot of the books now, but the principle is give of the best to your master. And if we plan our time out and we allow the time, we make the time. We never find time, ladies. Did you know that? You don't find time, you make the time. And we need to make the time to do those tasks for the Lord when we can do them our best. Why then are we so guilty of procrastination? And I think if we searched our hearts honestly, all of us would say that this is a besetting sin that we have to fight constantly. It is just so easy to think, well, I'll have more time tomorrow. But tomorrow somehow never comes. Jesus knew about human nature. My husband very often says, and I am fond of quoting him, that there's never been a problem that man has faced that inspiration didn't anticipate. Jesus knew human nature. God made us, and He knows how we are. And in the parable of the vineyard, He discusses the problem of the procrastinators. In Matthew, the 21st chapter, along about verses 28 and the following verses, we read about a father with 2 sons. There was work to be done in the vineyard. And so the father says to the first son, "Son, go to work today in my vineyard." Now this was a simple request, and one which certainly the father had a right to understand. You know, every family member has an obligation, which we ought to consider a privilege really, to contribute worthwhile things to the family framework. We all ought to have responsibilities, and just as a side thought to you young mothers, don't make the mistake of doing everything for your children. Teach them responsibility. Teach them that they must contribute and carry their part of the load, small when they are small, and increase it as their abilities increase. But make them a real part of the family framework and family responsibilities. That's going to be a lesson that they'll carry through life. But this first son answered, "I will not." He wanted no part of the family responsibility. And we see that today. We have spoiled our children today. We haven't taught them responsibility, and we're reaping the results. If the story ended here, it would really be sad, wouldn't it? But this son later reflected, and it says he repented and he went. When we make a wrong decision, don't procrastinate in changing. Be willing to admit that you're wrong. Do you know one of the hardest things for mankind to do is to say, "I was wrong. I've sinned. I've made a mistake." But be a big enough person to admit that you've made a mistake and be willing to make the proper corrections. Then the father came to the second son and made the same request. Now this son very eagerly said, "I'll go." But he didn't. How many times have we promised something and we didn't follow through? Which son do you think came closer to obeying his father's command? Which one really was the one that his father could depend upon? And then ask yourself the question, which one of us can the Father above depend upon? When we are determined to do something, do we follow through with that task? Do we fulfill our Christian responsibilities? Reflect for a moment on the Christian life today. When you and I agreed to obey the gospel and made that momentous decision, the most important decision of our lives, in reality, we were saying, "Father, I will go. I'm going to commit my life to living for Thee, to promote Thy word." Which son did we follow? Did we go, or did we just promise to go and not follow through? In essence, we said we were going to go. And we need to examine ourselves carefully to see whether or not we followed through. It becomes an easy attitude to develop of letting someone else do it. You heard that old proverb or proverbial statement, "Let George do it." I'd like to meet George because he must be a busy fellow. We need to shoulder our own responsibilities. Christianity is an individual responsibility. You cannot do my Christian work for me. I can't do yours. And we need not to procrastinate and think that our time is going to be less filled in later time. We have allowed ourselves in today's society especially to become so entangled with worldly activities, with the routine things of life which are good, that we procrastinate doing those things which we ought to do for the Lord. The story of Mary, I think, is appropriate here. You remember Mary saw a need when she anointed his feet with the alabaster box. There was a need there, and Mary saw it. And I think most of us ladies have an intuitive attitude built in where we see needs sometimes more quickly than our husbands do. I really believe that. But we sometimes have the attitude of seeing it for someone else to do. You who are elders' wives, you who are preachers' wives, have very likely had the same experience as have I. That someone will come to you and say, we need to do so-and-so. It's a good thing. It's a good work. It needs to be done. But what are they really saying? They're really coming to you and saying, you need to see that it's done. And you can't do everything. You need to do your part. And I regret seeing the attitude in some of the modern preachers' wives today, and I'm not seeing it here, and I'm pleased. But I have been some places teaching preachers' wives classes where I see the attitude, well, they didn't hire me to. I don't have any responsibility. You're part of a team. You're not being hired. You're there because you're a Christian. And you have the responsibility as a Christian wife to do your part. Don't consider yourself a hireling. Consider yourself as a Christian servant. And don't refuse to do your part. That's just thrown in extra. I won't even charge for that. But we need, as we go through life, to think about what our responsibilities is, what our real purpose in life is. We're here to prepare for heaven. We're here to take as many with us as we can take to heaven, and we'll never do that by procrastination. We talk a lot, ladies, about how wonderful it is to be a Christian, and it is. I think one of the things that I have enjoyed about doing this type of thing the most is knowing that perhaps I'm doing a little good, but the additional joy is that I meet the most wonderful ladies in the world. When you associate with Christian people, you're with the cream of the crop. It is wonderful to be a Christian, but let's be sure that we're not just talking a good game. Let's be sure that we're doing. You know, it's one thing to talk about our Christian activities. It's another thing to really do it. How much better to have it done well than said well. The need to focus on our goal is one of the things that we must learn to do if we're going to overcome procrastination. And getting back to the story of Mary, not only did she see the need, but she saw the need was there for Mary to do. Mary wanted to do something that was good. She wanted to do something that was good herself. She wanted to do something good herself for the Lord. Now there's a difference in that than what we sometimes do today. Please don't understand what I'm about to say, but I want you to listen carefully and think through with me. There are many activities today, ladies, that are good in and of themselves. that we as Christians need to promote. We need to be a part of our community promotion to make it better, to make our moral standards higher. We need to speak out against the things that are wrong morally in our communities. And there are many activities that will help promote this that we as Christian ladies need to be involved in. But let me give you a word of caution. Watch carefully that you don't allow yourself to become so involved in those activities that you have no time left to promote the thing that's the most important, and that is the Lord's work. I see some of our talented women doing marvelous good works secularly in the community, that when it comes time for them to be used in the Lord's work, they have no time left, and we bring the crumbs and we drop them at the Lord's table. Let's be careful that we don't do that. We need to prioritize our time. We need to be a good example in raising the standards of our communities. But we need to see that the primary thing that we are to promote is the Lord's work. And Mary had learned that lesson. She wanted to do her good work for the Lord. And that's what we want to do. In focusing on our goals, this will help us to keep our eyes on the goal that we are here on this earth to fulfill. And as we walk through this life, our influence and our actions ought to be such that will cause others to want to investigate and to become Christians. I thought the lesson that Brother Cawthon gave a few moments ago was so inspiring. You think about all the hours and all the travel that he has given to spread the gospel all over the world, and it might make you want to do more yourself. We as Christians have such marvelous opportunities today. We don't often understand really the opportunities that are ours. We, as I said before, have become so engrossed in the day-to-day walks that we forget. You know, this was true even in the Lord's time. With all the teaching that was done prior to the coming of Christ, all the predictions that were made, with all the contacts that his earthly parents had with him, they didn't really understand his purpose here in this life, did they? And when Jesus was 12 years of age and he became separated from his parents and they came back to find him at the temple talking with the lawyers, they began to reprimand him a little. And he said, "Did you not know I was to be about my Father's business?" They didn't understand the real purpose for the Lord being here. Jesus knew the importance. And we need to teach our children the importance. Remember, Jesus said in John the 9th chapter that I must be about the works of my Father that sent me while it's day, because the night cometh when no man can work. Our time here in this world is not endless. No matter how old the Lord allows us to live, we have a limited amount of time to do the work that we are here to do. And procrastination is going to rob us of that accomplishment. Our journey here is serious. And we need to take it seriously, because the day of reckoning is going to come. And we're going to be judged on how much we accomplished and not how much we intended to accomplish. And this is the reason that we need to always keep our goal before us, ladies. We need to remember that this giving of accounts is going to be a serious matter. I think one of the most sobering thoughts that can come into the mind of a Christian is the thought of giving account, not only for our deeds, but for the very thoughts that come into our mind. An idle word is a word that's designed to hurt someone else. And so it matters what we speak. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, or by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Matthew 12:37. We need to learn to keep our eyes focused on the goal that God intended for us to fulfill. And our lives are to be filled with good works. This doesn't allow any time for procrastination, does it? This good works matter is not something that's a one-time thing. It is to be a constant part of the Christian's life. And when I see a good work that needs to be done, I need to look at myself as the one to lead it and fulfill it. I sometimes tell ladies who come up with good ideas that I think that's wonderful. Would you be in charge? I had one lady say she opened her mouth at the wrong time and she got put in charge. But that's fine. Because if you see the good work, you're bound to have an interest in that work. And you may be the very one to make it be a real success. Recognizing a good work or a need is usually not the problem for us. The problem is following through. We even have good intentions. We mean to follow through, and then we just don't. We may make a mental note of what needs to be done, but we just don't get around to do it. And let's, as Christian women, remember that our lives are to be filled with good works. It concerns me when I hear some of us older ladies, and my husband says I need to include myself in that now, but it concerns me when I see some of us want to sit back in our rocking chair and think we have done our due. We need to be training our younger ones, but we don't need to be giving up ourselves. I thought the example that Brother Cawthon gave of his wife's service was a sweet example. She hasn't given up. She's still doing effective work. There are many things that we elderly women can do. If nothing else, we can encourage the younger ones to get involved, can we not? And I like to see you younger preachers' wives involved in the work of your husbands. And here's another little extra. Don't be jealous of your husband. I did a survey a number of years ago, and this is beside the lesson, and I know it is, but I like to throw this in when I'm talking with preachers' wives that are in training especially. I did a survey a few years ago at that time with the intent of writing a book for preachers' wives, which I've never accomplished. I've sort of been discouraged by doing it, to be honest with you. They tell me there's not really a market for it, and I don't understand, since there's a market for work for the husbands and they have wives. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but anyway, the survey was very disappointing to me. The attitude that came across was that they resented the attention given to their husbands and that they weren't giving as much attention themselves. Well, now, ladies, you who marry preachers need to be realistic. Your husband is by God put in the forefront more than you are. This is not just true in church work. Your husband in the business field is usually put out front more than you are, is he not? Why are you jealous of him? Rather than wasting your time and energy in jealousy, find a niche for yourself. Find a place of service and develop your talent. And work with him side by side, not putting a roadblock in his way. Any preacher is not able to be as effective with a disgruntled wife as he is with one who will walk and work cooperatively with him. Be proud of your husband, support him, and help him. And realize that you have a place as well. Procrastination. The very saying of the word conjures up not good visions, does it? It is a robber of good works. It's really a thief. And so to whom are we to do good then? We've talked about procrastination and the need to do good work. To whom are we to do this good work? And already my signal, and I'm just getting started. To whom are we to do good work? Well, we have those who say only those who are Christians. But the Bible tells us that we are to do it to all men. And remember, Jesus tells us that inasmuch as you do it unto one of these least, you've done it unto me. And remember the scene where he told them they had not done it unto him, that he didn't know them. And they said, when did we see thee naked or destitute? But they didn't do it to those who were in need. We as Christian ladies need to keep our eyes open to those in need. I've had a taste of what it means to receive Christian compassion. And even though our time is limited, I just must share this with you. I've had a few health problems recently. And the congregation there at Ripley has just rallied and kept us in food all through the Christmas holidays. I've almost forgotten to cook, just to be honest with you. They have been so gracious. And it's really hit me full force what it means to come to somebody's need in a time of trouble. When the Bible talks about visiting those who are sick, those who are needy, that doesn't just mean a social call. Sometimes, ladies, that's all that's needed. Sometimes those who live alone and are lonely just need some companionship. And we mustn't forget to do that. But sometimes there's a need for more than that. And this is one of those good works that we can accomplish. Laziness has never been condoned by God. It's not to be a part of the Christian life. Jesus says the poor we'll have always. We need to help and take care of them. We need to learn not to allow ourselves to become so hardened against some of the abuses that are made today that we don't take advantage of the opportunities that come our way. One of the examples that I like to use in talking about doing good to others is that of the Good Samaritan, and I think that's the most marvelous example. Just hurriedly reflect with me that the first two who passed by this wounded Samaritan, or this wounded person, were religious people. They were religious leaders. They were those who purported to be showing the way of compassion. And yet, what did they do? They walked by on the other side. They didn't want to get involved. And this lowly Samaritan, who was so despised as a race, gave help and even offered to pay out of his own pocket for any needs that were needed. He even promised to reimburse for extra expenses. There's a beautiful song sung in some of our other books that expresses compassion for each other. Do you remember the telephone calls that you intend to make to those who are shut in and we forget to do? I was guilty of that just before we came. I meant to make a call and I didn't get it made. Remember the kind word of encouragement that we mean to do. That encouragement could mean so much. The song says, somebody did a golden deed, proving himself a friend in need. Indeed, somebody sang a cheerful song, brightening the sky the whole day long. Was that somebody you? Was that somebody you? Somebody made a loving gift, cheerfully tried a load to lift. Somebody fought a valiant fight, bravely he lived to shield the right. Was that somebody you? Somebody filled the days with light, constantly chased away the night. Somebody told the love of Christ, told how his will was sacrificed. Was that somebody you? It has been said that there are those who make people happy when they go, and there are those who make their friends happy when they come. We want to be the kind that brings cheer and we want to encourage those around us. The urgency of the Christian life is so vital and so important. It's a life that must not be empty. It's a life that is filled with activities. If a brother and sister is naked and destitute of clothes, we need to be right there. Christians ought to be the first people to fulfill a need. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. James 1:27. And remember, we said there are times when a visit is more than that social call. We can so easily put off doing the Father's will. The temptations are so prevalent. But we need to fight that temptation. We need to remember the will of Jesus is for us to do the will of the Father. We need to follow His example. It's reasonable that God expects us to live a life of service. We're not to be conformed to the world, but we are to be transformed. I always like to think of Dorcas when I think of a person whose example is one of good works. I like to think of the worthy woman, and I wish we had more time for me to finish my lesson. I get wound up and I just don't get it all covered. But if you read the passage in Proverbs 31 of the worthy woman, and I like to encourage women to read that regularly, you'll see that she was a woman of activity. She was a quiet, peaceful, busy, compassionate lady. And as Christians, we too need to be of that type. I wanted to discuss briefly the Christian graces and the part that they would help us build our lives into lives of service. But time is about gone, and so we won't do that. But read those and see how they start with your faith, and you build each step as you mature and grow in those Christian graces. Hosea said of old in Hosea 4:6 that my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. And I think as we learn more about what God intends for us to do, excuse me, that we will be more actively involved. And that we will fill our lives with Christian service. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to quit. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go, I will come again. We're told in Revelation that to him that overcometh will be given the crown. Let's eliminate procrastination, and let's eliminate this omitting doing the things that we know to do from our Christian lives. And may God help us as Christian women to be the force behind any good program, to see that it will succeed. This lectureship could not be successful without you ladies here. Much of the work that we women do is in the background, but it's some of the most important work in the work of the church. Never underrate your importance in God's plan, and never clamor to be filling a place that God did not intend for you to fill. May God bless us all and help us that we may live the Christian life for Him. Thank you so much for your endurance.